Okay guys, I know how much you wanted this. I'm going to rate other fragrance reviewers based on their looks. Okay, who do we have first? Alright, she's not bad looking. Second, okay, not bad, not bad. Third, yeah, she's okay looking. Fourth, oh okay, now he's good looking. He's a 7 out of 10. Next up, oh, 9 out of 10 for him. He is definitely a 10 out of 10. Oh my god, and this is a beautiful man. This man right here gets a 12 out of 10. Okay guys, the lighting is a bit weird. It looks like we're in the red light district, but we're gonna roll with it. Now, any of you guys who are longtime fans will remember we used to do 1-minute reviews of fragrances on our website, and at the bottom of each page we had a score out of 10. Back in the day I used to be quite unprofessional with it. I used to just kind of pluck a number out of thin air. And eventually I said to myself, okay, if I'm going to be a reviewer, I have to be more professional. I'm going to need to have a process. Like in anything in life, like in medicine, we have processes to make us more professional and more consistent with the way we view things. But of course, they're guidelines, they're not perfect, and you still have to have some subjectivity when you give a rating out of 10. Now, I'm going to share this process with you guys today. I want you guys to tell me what you think of it. In my experience, it's worked really well. It's given fairly accurate scores for fragrances, but of course, processes can be refined over time. They're not always perfect. I'm going to go through each category, referring to different fragrances throughout the process, and then finally at the end, I'm going to give you an overall summary of how I use the process on fragrances like La Nuit de l'homme, Bleu, Electrique, and also a $1,569 perfume. Let's get into the video, guys. Class is in session. When assessing a fragrance for a rating out of 10, the first category I think of is scent. Most of us like to just purely base our rating based on this, but it's only one aspect of a fragrance. So I usually give it 3 points maximum, and I think of 2 things when I'm giving this score. Basically, what does the fragrance ingredients smell like? Are they cheap or high quality? And what is the blend like? Is the fragrance well composed? So a fragrance I would get a 1 out of 3 from me would be Hugo Boss's The Original The Scent. I think the ingredients here are generic and used in most designer fragrances. And I also think that the blend isn't very interesting. It has this interesting maninka fruit opening and goes down to this very safe woody dry down. It's meant to make you buy it in the shops and that's it. I don't think this does well in either of those categories. Then to get a 2 out of 3, you can either have a good blend but bad quality ingredients, or good quality ingredients but bad blends. Like Club de Nuit Intense Man, the Eau de Toilette. Smells fantastic in the air, great blend, smells like Aventus, but if you go up close to your skin, of course everyone says it smells like Lemon Pledge. You can tell that the ingredient quality is not there. Or Parfum de Marly's Cologne. The ingredients, you can tell, is the standard PDM high quality, very interesting accords in here, but the blend is a little bit abrasive. The opening with their black pepper accord I think lasts a bit too long, making this quite a polarizing fragrance. And finally, to get a 3 out of 3, your fragrance needs to have high quality ingredients and a high quality blend, such as Guerlain's Vetiver. I said in a previous video I wanted to get rid of this. It's not my style, but objectively I would still give this full points for scent. It has a masterful blend, and for how cheap this is, the ingredients still smell extremely high quality. So even if a fragrance is not something you would wear, you as a reviewer would still give this full points. Category number 2 is performance. For this, you have to have the fragrance being tested on bare skin that doesn't have any hair on it, and you also need to be able to detect the fragrance easily. If you have to really bury your nose in it to get a faint hint of the molecules, then in my opinion, it's not performing at that time zone. For example, Mugler Cologne would get a 1 out of 3. The first bracket for me is between 0 and 4 hours. You're not getting more than 4 hours of this fragrance on bare skin, so it gets a 1. A 2 out of 3 is between 4 and 8 hours. So Versace Oud Noir gets a 2 because it lasts 6 hours. And then a 3 out of 3 for me is a fragrance that lasts easily over 8 hours, which is going to be Mancera's Instant Crush. This stuff easily lasts over 12 hours. It gets full points. Third category is wearability. If you have a fragrance you love, but you find that you can barely wear it any time of the year, is it worth your money? Again, this category is based out of 3 points. Nasomato's Black Afghano gets a 1 out of 3. I would never recommend this for anyone to wear outside of wintertime. I feel like this fragrance was designed for a man who lives in the North Pole. But if your fragrance works in 2 seasons, like Chanel's Allure Homme Edition Blonde, this works in spring and summer, it gets 2 points. And finally, if your fragrance works in at least 3 seasons, it gets full points in my opinion for this category. like Prada Luna Rosa Black. Although this is a date fragrance, I feel this could be worn all 4 seasons, all year round. This gets full marks for wearability. And then finally, the last category is based out of 1 point. You get an extra bonus point for price value. Does the fragrance smell higher quality than the price you're paying for? A lot of fragrances don't meet this criteria, and a lot of times it's very difficult for fragrances to get a perfect 10 score. But fragrances that include this would be something like Roche's Mustache EDP, easily smells higher quality than the price you're paying, or even Prada L'Homme Intense. People think, oh, it's a designer fragrance, but I think they easily could have doubled the price on that and people would have been happy to pay it. Okay, now let's take that process and apply it brutally to today's sponsor, Jacques Fath. And I have here their top seller, Curaçao Bay. This fragrance sort of smells like Nautica Voyage and Creed Virgin Island Water had a baby. It's sort of a soapy pina colada coconut fragrance. I think it smells sweet, but fresh, but also powdery. It's got good quality ingredients and a very good and interesting creative blend. For scent, it gets a 3 out of 3. Performance, I get 10 hours with a moderate projection. It gets a 3 for performance. For wearability, again, I feel that this is perfectly balanced, but also interesting. I think for at least 3 seasons, maybe don't wear this in the winter time, but other 3 seasons, you can easily wear this as your daytime signature. It gets a 3. And finally, price value proposition. I think it doesn't get the bonus points. I think it's excellently priced and I think it's appropriately priced. So it's a 0 out of 1, giving Curaçao Bay a 9 out of 10. But you don't have to take my word for it, guys. Jacques Fath produces very high quality traditional French perfumery for a very reasonable price. You can try out all their fragrances and samples online. Curaçao Bay is my favorite daytime scent from them, and Velour Boisé is my favorite evening scent. You can try all their stuff for free. You simply pay for shipping depending on which part of the world you reside. And Jacques Fath have very kindly sent me a $1,500 perfume. Well, only a few mils of it because I didn't want to go bankrupt. This is something very interesting now. This is not for the faint of heart. This is not for the traditional average consumer of fragrances. This is a piece of history in my hand here. This is a recreation of Gris Iris by Jacques Fath from 1946. It is one of the legendary Hall of Fame fragrances that's been immortalized in the Perfumery Osmothèque, which is a place in France where they have the original vintage formulations from things in the early 20th century. The Osmothèque ran a competition to have 2 perfumers try and recreate the original Iris Gris using modern materials, and this is exactly what's happened here. Now we have Iris Fath, which a 30 ml bottle of it is 1,350 euros. Now, you may be wondering, why is it so expensive? That's because it has some of the most expensive perfumery ingredients in the world. This is all naturals. This has a very expensive ingredient called orris root, which is iris. People think iris, the flower, is where the scent comes from. It's not from the flower. The flower doesn't have much of a scent. It's from the root. It's called orris butter, and it's similar price to oud. It's about $50,000 per kilo. Hence why this is so expensive. This is for people who really want a piece of history. Jacques Fath was meant to be the rival of Christian Dior in the post-war era, but unfortunately passed away at the age of 42 from leukemia. So unfortunately, the fragrance died along with him. But now we, luckily, for people who are really into perfumery, really into raw materials, this is probably one of the best ways to smell pure orris roots. I work with raw materials myself, and I can attest to this. This is not a long-lasting fragrance. This is not a fragrance you wear every day. It's not your traditional panty dropper. This is the kind of fragrance I only recommend for people who are really into perfumery, the art of it itself, into the history, and for those who want to wear something on a really special occasion. This is for the kind of people who want a very memorable scent. You use it with your loved one, maybe if you're on a honeymoon, something that's really, really special. 30 mils, obviously, I'm not going to say spend over £1,000, but Jacques Fath are releasing the few mil sample of this fragrance. You can pay for £100, which is more within our reach. I recommend you guys check it out. Again, not for most people, but for you guys who are really, really into perfumery, this is special. This is oh my God. The scent is probably a 5 out of 3 I'd give it in that category. It's a perfectly balanced peach and iris. If I was to make my own office fragrance, I now have been inspired by this. I think peach and iris are working very, very well in this together. They're kind of perfectly composed. If you want the perfect scent, if you really want to think of a perfect scent, you will get it from this. But not everyone will appreciate this. Again, you have to have it in the nose for high quality raw materials. And finally, La Nuit de l'homme Bleu Electrique. This has been getting a lot of hype in the community for recreating and reviving the original vintage formulation of La Nuit de l'homme, the original from 2009. It's a bit of a history lesson today, guys. We're reviving old fragrances. Now, does this meet the hype? I'm going to apply the out of 10 formula I've discussed in this video to this fragrance. So I'd give the original La Nuit de l'homme in today's modern formulation a 7 out of 10, still pretty good. But this, let's go through it. Scent-wise, I think high quality ingredients, beautiful blends. It's got the La Nuit de l'homme DNA, it's fantastic, 3 out of 3. Performance, much better than the original. I'm getting 8 hours with this. So for me, it would just miss the 3 out of 3 mark. It would get a 2 out of 3. For that. Wearability. I think it's not redundant to still own the original Nuit de l'homme, even though I think this does much better, because I don't think you can wear this in the summertime. I think all other 3 seasons, it can still be worn, but not in the summer. In the summertime, maybe you wear the original, it's more light. So this gets a 3 out of 3 for wearability. And finally, the price value, I think it's appropriately priced. It doesn't get the point there. Overall, I'm giving La Nuit de l'homme Bleu Electrique an 8 out of 10. Does it meet the hype? Absolutely. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's got a different sort of take on the DNA. I don't think so. I think it smells very similar to the original. I've never smelled the original vintage formulation of La Nuit, but this is what I imagine it would smell like. It's, with the beauty of the La Nuit DNA, it's got this perfectly balanced, spicy, woody, sweet and fresh DNA. And that's exactly what you have here. It doesn't have cardamom anymore, but you can barely notice the lack of cardamom. It just makes it a lot more intense. The DNA is more substantial. It doesn't smell like a watered down fragrance finally. It's got me a lot of compliments only in the few days that I've worn it. I'm loving it. I don't think it smells like a blue fragrance at all. I think, again, it's 95% similar to the original DNA, but more intense. But I'm not sure why they named it Bleu Electric. It's got nothing to do with electricity. It's got nothing to do with being blue. The problem is, in the past, they've used names already like Le Parfum, Intense, Eau de Parfum, the names that this fragrance should have had. They've already used it in other releases that weren't as great as this. And also in the past, YSL is just not that good with names in general. Like Ash from Gen Senses said, they made a fragrance called YSL Why Live. The guy who's making these names needs to be fired. Either way, forget the name, the bottle looks cool, and it's revived the original formulation. It is fantastic. I cannot recommend this more, guys. This is a fantastic release by YSL. Good job. And there you have it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode in the red light district. Let me know, what do you think of my process? How do you guys design your own ratings out of 10 for a fragrance? I think a lot of us like to make our numbers out of thin air, but tell me, do you have a process yourself? Do you agree with my process, or how do you think it could be changed? What do you disagree with? As I said, these things get improved and reformed over time, but this is what I found to work for me so far. Make sure to check out our other videos in the meantime, and check out Jacques Fath in the description below. We'll see you in the next one. Class dismissed.